Ron Fair quite literally has so many gold and platinum records on his wall that he doesn't need wallpaper. A true visionary, Ron has established Hall of Fame careers for some of the world's most iconic artists like Mary J. Blige, Christina Aguilera, Black Eyed Peas, Fergie, and our collective guilty pleasure, 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. Just as a quick side note, Ron, I don't know if I ever told you this. 2 years ago, I was at Chance the Rapper show at oh my gosh, the outdoor place in LA here, the Bowl. And there was a DJ that came on, and he was playing all kinds of stuff. And then as soon as the DJ played 1,000 Miles, the place went mental. Like everybody at the Chance the Rapper concert literally went mental listening to that song. And I know we've talked about putting that song together. We worked together, and he is one of personally my most trusted and cherished friends in the business. His ear is impeccable, and in my opinion, Ron is quite literally the most passionate and thoughtful person as it pertains to making music and really understanding and going inside the DNA of a song. So I wanted to introduce you to my friend Ron Fair. I could give you a longer intro, but then we would have nothing to talk about because literally it would last an hour.
I think that as we go through our conversation here today, that people can ask questions. We'll talk more about it. It's it's funny going back through your credits and your track record and the things that you've done in the past, because all of them in my current state of mind are completely irrelevant because it's all about, especially in the music industry, it's all about what have you done now? Where are you now? And so constantly hearkening back to what got me here, it's I'm a little uncomfortable with it, but I don't mind telling the stories about the music making. And for the people who came on at the very beginning, we started off this with the pre-show, which was 2 electric guitars that I'm proud of owning, because it always comes back to music and musical instruments and musicians and songwriters and second line or second verses and kick drum sounds and hi-hat patterns and all of that, all of the ingredients that make up our wonderful recipe and translate into the industry are where I thrive. So looking more forward than behind. But today we'll make an exception. Why is this night different from all other nights besides the coronavirus? I'm talking to Justin Gray. Thank you for the shout out, and let's go.
Ron, I'm totally with you. I just think that to kind of give a little bit of context to your depth of experience, I think helps.
Can I stop you right there, because I want to immediately go to how fortunate I was in my life, and I always refer to my start where I was so lucky, and it's about mentorship. It's about those of us who can find an individual who will open the hood on ourselves and help us crack the code for each of our lives. And I was very, very fortunate, so fortunate that I had such a wonderful group of mentors as I came through the business. But the one who really put me on my path, and the person that I sort of to this day idolize the most, is a film composer by the name of Bill Conti. Who became famous for writing the original score for Rocky. And Bill Conti was a man who I met coincidentally when I was sweeping floors and answering phones at a crappy little recording studio on Pico, just east of La Cienega, that was called Hollywood Spectrum. It was nowhere near Hollywood, by the way. And it was a tiny little, like, mono voiceover studio that was originally owned by a dentist who had a hankering for recording. So today we're going to go in the weeds a little bit in the storytelling, and it'll be fun and therapeutic for me. So Bill Conti was a client of this little recording studio. He was doing some demos for industrial films or stuff with like 3 cellos and an ARP Odyssey, strange configurations of movie score ensembles. And I was the kid who was trying to learn how to be a recording engineer, trying to just be in the mix of recording, coming out of high school and junior high, in bands, bar mitzvahs, weddings, any place I could play music. And I had this job because a friend of mine had an ownership stake. He knew the dentist. And Bill Conti and I became friends, and I was 22 years old. So I started visiting him in his home and learning about the music that he was working on and composing. He was also a burning badass jazz piano player, Oscar Peterson level. And I idolized Bill and would do anything to have those kind of chops to play that period of jazz, Oscar Peterson and Errol Garner, Ahmad Jamal, Dave Brubeck, like all of my jazz heroes as I was trying to find my way through pop and R&B and jazz, and I was completely immersed in it. Jazz was my big love. Anyway, and Bill was burning. So he was everything. He was handsome. He had a convertible, beautiful young family, and an Afghan, and a pool, and he was the coolest guy ever. And getting to work with him, one of the jobs he had was the score for this little film from this guy who held out to play the leading role of his own script, and it was Sylvester Stallone, and the movie was Rocky. And Bill had done a lot of work in Italy, and he was also a Juilliard bassoon player, so he sat in the middle of the orchestra. And as a bassoonist, you're positioned in the middle where you can hear everything. It's the best 360 listening position for a guy who wants to be a composer. So Rocky was a gig that Bill had. And he called me and he said, I need you to come down to my house, and we're going to review the scores, and I'll show you where the cues are, because I want you in the control room. Our setup is tight, and the harp is positioned close to the trumpets, so we have to make sure the harp mic is off when the trumpets are playing. Otherwise, the trumpet's going to leak into the harp mic, and it's going to sound weird. So I'm going to give you all the cues, and you'll learn all the cues. And I was his assistant. So, bar 43, mute the harp mic, bring it back on bar 69 for 4 bars, turn it back off, because the engineer was managing too many things, and so these little internal cues I could help with. And it was recorded at Rocky, the original soundtrack, which produced this #1 international hit, Gonna Fly Now, and all that incredible music, that iconic music, that all of that was recorded in 3 hours, recorded and mixed. And it was recorded on 3-striped sprocketed mag film. So you had left, center, and right. The panning in the stereo spectrum of the orchestra was left, center, or right. There wasn't even an in-between on that particular console. The whole thing was done in 3 hours, as I told you. And then as the universe played out, the music from Rocky became the biggest shit in the world on every level, including an instrumental #1 pop single. And I had my first real credit, and my name was on the record. Then Bill Conti did the most amazing thing ever. He came down to one of my crappy jazz sessions I had a little jazz band of my own, and I could barely keep up. But I was the brains, but I was the worst musician. And I had great players around me. And it was a studio that's right now, it's the Redbury Hotel now, opposite Capitol Records, but there was a recording studio there called El Dorado in Hollywood. And I had a little perch at El Dorado as an engineer and brought some business in. And Bill Conti came to the studio, and in front of my friends, unfurled this thing wrapped in brown paper, ripped off the paper, and handed me my first gold record in front of my friends when I was 22 for the original soundtrack to Rocky. And he called me aside. He did this incredible thing. So you can imagine among all my peers, like, I'm the guy with the gold album. It was such an incredible badge. It was the diploma for the Tin Woodman. It was the Medal of Valor for the Cowardly Lion. It was the symbol of something that I'd worked on my whole life, this gold album. And then that's when Bill Conti said, Ron, you're a half-ass arranger. You're a half-ass engineer. You're a quarter-ass piano player. Put all the asses together, and you're a producer. And I thought to myself, was that the biggest insult in the world, or was that the divine stroke of luck that this beautiful man, this beautiful, talented, incredible superhero man, put me on my path at age 22 and stamped it into my brain, that if I could take all these musical skills that I was half-ass at and put them together, that I would have more than a full ass and a shot to go forward. That's how I started.
I love that story, and what's so interesting about it too that I can totally relate to it is that it's so much about timing too, isn't it? It's not even like you can kind of want it and need it and think you're making the right moves, but sometimes it's just divine intervention. It's just you're in the right place at the right time, and you get that opportunity, and
well, there's a part two to that, Justin. There's a part two to that, and I have, like people who work with me and my alumni, some of whom may be on this call, people who've held record company positions, and I was their boss for many years or whatever. We call it RFU, and they have a little dictionary of these funny sayings that I have, but one of which is you never know who turns out to be who. So a minor character passing through the plot of your career or of your life 10 years from now could end up being the leading character. And the person who's consuming all your time and energy in your exchanges in your musical career and in the dynamics could end up being really just a minor character. You don't know. So it really requires that you treat everybody with respect and dignity the best you can. We don't always achieve that, but because you actually do not know who turns out to be who in your career, and time again it proved out.
So true. There's just nothing else to add to that. It's just absolutely the truth. We got the benefit to work on a project together when you were at Capitol Records. But one of the questions that I had, which I think that sometimes people tend to think, well, I'm a producer, or they want to do A&R, but you actually have been able to be extremely successful at both. How did what was the idea of going from, just knowing a bit of the backstory, then at some point you start working in the record label system, but yet using your producer hat? Like, what was the idea for you to start working within the label system as well as being a producer? You know my question?
Now, the record companies, and especially today, because they're configured so differently today than they were, they're kind of a mirror of the pop culture of the music that we record and the way and what we need. So in order to make those recordings and make, there's immediately leads me to, there's another one of these corny sayings I have, which is about commenting on the great difference there is between music and records. So when I came out of a classical music family where my father was listening to opera and my mother was playing Chopin, and my sister was singing folk music, and I was, listening to Cream and Hendrix and The Who and Donovan. When I came out of that, and we've been to every musical comedy and opera and theater and Mozart, I had such a rich musical background. But then when I realized, oh shit, these pop songs that are going to help me make my living in this only require a certain percentage of all that musicality, and that a great piece of music doesn't necessarily make a great record, and a great record isn't necessarily contains great music, and we constantly are relearning that, and what a sliding scale that is, and how as record warriors, it's not our job to be the vigilant avenging angels of musical greatness. It's more about catching vibes. So back when I started, to answer your question, what served the needs of making hit records was record producers who had really deep chops among live players and creating sounds from live players. It was actually before there were lots of synthesizers and patches. We had to do it with bands and guitar pedals and weird reverb effects. And so producers worked inside labels because they were making the hits that were feeding the labels. They would identify the artists, or there would be A&R people or scouts, and the producers had in-house roles, and there was a bunch of them who I idolized. I've always been a hero worshiper. I love biographies, and I love the legacy that great people leave behind, because that's how we learn. So for me, it was Ted Templeman and Lenny Waronker and Russ Titleman and Arif Mardin and Jerry Wexler. And these guys were doing like Aretha and Simon and Garfunkel and, on and on, Tom Dowd, like every one of these Clapton records. And they were all coming from inside in-house. So for me, my holy grail was, I got to get a job. I got to be I want to be a producing A&R guy. I want to find the act. I want to produce the act. And then maybe I'll be able to sit at the table and see how they market the act and promote the act at radio, and I'll have a voice. So I modeled myself after those guys. Now, does that work today? Is that necessary today? No, because today's hot gun, Top Gun, A&R gunslinger, record producer has a different skill set. He's a social beast. He's a digital monster, or she. It's a person who's immersed in TikTok, in Spotify, in a line around the block, in output on your contacts plugin, in all of the current ingredients that drive the Little Nas X or Juice WRLD or Halsey. It's like it's you don't need symphony conductors and piano players in the record label to do what is required for today. So it morphs and the ball moves. And by the way, in the future, record executives may be the guys who know how to operate the AI software that writes the hits, because it might not even be people. And there may be avatars and there may be holograms, because holograms don't get sore throats and don't have momagers, and they're easier to manage than humans. And if they can make hits that way and eliminate the flesh, think of how much more money there is for record companies. So this is like a forever thing that moves forward. But in my time as a young guy coming up, the holy grail was to play the role of the staff producer, in-house A&R guy. And from that perch, I worked my way up to, for starting at manager, then director, then senior director, then vice president, then senior vice president, then president, then chairman. I ran the whole gamut before they shot me in the head, sent me out to the pasture.
But I think what was well, there's so much to unpack, so much knowledge to unpack in there. But I remember us having a conversation at your home here in LA, and one of the things that you said is that you really felt a sort of a need to kind of understand and in a way control the process. You didn't want to just make the records and then kind of depend on other people. You wanted to be able to really oversee how they came out, the marketing strategy to really give those songs the best shot you could.
Well, I had, again, great teachers and great people, and like probably the most successful period of my music career when I was with Jimmy Iovine. He really believed that the A&R person and that the musical spirit guide of a project should oversee the marketing, and that it wasn't a handoff process where, like, okay, I'll do the C, F, G and the D minor 7 and boom, 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 and then hand it to a guy who's going to run with it. That you stayed tethered to it, that it was your baby. So, the actual marketing chops, that's a different story, because that's a different knowledge base. And if I learned anything in playing these multiple roles in my era, it was how utterly unholy and feeble the proposition was. It was not the right way to do it. So I think that, as we've seen eras in record companies where it's promotion guys run labels, A&R guys run labels, producers run labels, marketing guys run labels. It's an ever-changing thing, and I think my era of producer A&R guys running labels, although we did have a lot of success, I don't think it was the best idea.
But you're talking about era. It almost makes it feel like it was a time in the past, which it was. But we've had conversations offline about just kind of reapproaching marketing in today's, sort of in today's market. And, if anybody's logged into TikTok for 15 seconds, hit songs live and breathe in 15 seconds these days, especially through TikTok. When you look at the arc of pop music over the years, all the way up to today, are there consistencies in the way that, maybe not technically speaking, but are there consistencies in terms of why songs connect to people? What are there hard and fast rules?
No, and that's why there isn't a computer that can consistently write a hit. Otherwise, there's certainly enough algorithms in the Pandora playbook that a computer ought to be able to spit out a hit. It doesn't work that way. It's not going to work that way, at least in our lifetime. I think that it goes back to what I said about music and records, and it's also a reflection of the times in the consumption habits. I have 4 children under 13. I'm not sure that they've ever heard a song all the way through. It probably, I can tell you for sure, my 7-year-old has not. My 11-year-old has, because he's like a little bit of an individual. He likes, Queen and Elton John and classic rock. But they're just not set up that. They don't understand why we can't skip to the next song if we're listening to top 40 radio in the car. Like, Daddy, why would we listen to top 40 radio in the car when I have everything on my phone right here and I can just go to the next song? So we're the lucky ones who are living on the planet in these massive changes in consumption and entertainment and health, as we're all suffering through now. And we get to witness this tectonic shift in everything. Whereas, guys who lived 70 years ago, it wasn't moving this fast, but it's moving.
So do you think that technology dictates the way that music is made? Do you think that the consumption dictates the way that it's actually created?
No, I think that if you're in the business of selling recorded music, you have several propositions. You have stars, real stars, Taylor Swift, Halsey, Billie Eilish, real stars that will sell tickets, that will create tremendous connection with their fans in every genre, R&B, rap. Somebody like Drake, look at the enormous pull he has. He is a real star. And then there's records that come and go that are just delightful and fun. And, in the old days, that would have been How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? That was a hit. That's why we all know it. And it was standing side by side with Frank Sinatra in its day. So it's more like all lanes are open on the freeway. And as each new era is ushered in, more lanes have to be built. We didn't have the TikTok lane 3 years ago. Now we do. And it's moving fast and it's got high traffic on it. We have YouTube, that didn't exist. We have the DSPs, that didn't exist. We still have television that pushes out songs in tremendous syncs, where an emotional song is synced to a scene in a big TV show, and that generates demand. We have more lanes on the freeway. And if you're in the business of recorded music, anything that has a lane on the freeway is fair game. And then as those, and some of them dry up, like comedy records. Okay, that used to be a big deal. Classical records, jazz records, there's still a lane on the freeway, but it's a lot less traffic. So take none of it personally. Like, if a genre pops up or an artist pops up and that wave pulls in a whole lot of other stuff with it, you go with it. You go with it.
I mean, it's after die, right?
And then along the way, by the way, there's always an Adele, or somebody who's an extraordinary music talent, or a Lady Gaga, who it's like fucking undeniable. She's like, she's the Streisand of her generation. It's different. She writes and stuff, right? But, there's always that.
Can we talk about Lady Gaga for a moment, actually, because I know that you were there at probably the most crucial point in her career, where there was this sort of transition between the singer-songwriter version of Stephanie Germanotta and what ultimately became Lady Gaga. I mean, you were in the building.
Some of it I was not involved, and some of it I was an observer, a passive observer, and then a passenger, and then I did have an involvement with her in one song, which I'll talk about. But Lady Gaga has a wonderful story. When she was, by the way, let's just sidebar. What do Lady Gaga, 50 Cent, Macy Gray, Alicia Keys, Katy Perry all have in common, aside from the fact they're all gigantic stars? They were all dropped by major labels. And let's not forget Bruno Mars. Okay, they were all signed and dropped. So how do you drop Bruno Mars? Well, because you maybe the timing wasn't right, the imagination wasn't there. But anyway, they all have that in common, including the young Lady Gaga, who was Stephanie Germanotta, who reinvented herself. So when her music was delivered, and she saw she was creating like music for this sort of, well, she called them her monsters, like these sort of misfit kids that didn't fit in the classroom, the kids who felt weird about themselves, the kids who were struggling with self-image. And with Lady Gaga, they saw a kindred spirit, a kind of a Pied Piper who could pull them and give them hope, and through the music bring their suffering down a little bit and create joy. And she did it through dance music, and it wasn't R&B, it was pop dance music. So the initial reaction was, of course, when it went to radio, was, we have no interest in this. This is not going to fly. Our listeners don't want this. And then thanks to Canada and our friend Jeremy Summers, who was a promotion guy in Canada, who said, I don't care what's going on in America. I want to put this on the radio in Canada. It's a smash. We love it. And it came through the ICLA, which is the Intercompany Licensing Agreement. So Canada goes on Just Dance, the first Lady Gaga single. And guess what happens? Like in the movies, the signal from Toronto gets picked up in Buffalo. This is such a fabulous thing that we do, this whole pursuit that all of us are in, and why you're watching this webinar. But the signal gets picked up in Buffalo. Buffalo doesn't know that there's already been a negative reaction. They're like, we're not going to play this. Like, when promotion originally went to get ads. So Buffalo starts playing the record, and guess what happens? Like in the movies, line 1 flashing, line 2 flashing, line 3 flashing, fucking phone calls coming in from listeners saying, what is that? What is that? What is that? And then it spread like, forgive the expression, a virus. And boom. And this is where we people have short memories. The people that didn't hear it last week suddenly heard it because there was the push and pull. Music has a push and pull. Like, we're pushing music. All of us on this webinar are all making music, pushing music, trying to get somebody to listen to our music, trying to get somebody to do something with our music. We're all pushing. And then there's the lucky ones who are making music, but there's pull. Something's pulling on it. And that's a much more advantageous place to be, but they're both dynamics that are part of the puzzle. So Lady Gaga had real pull, and then guess what happened? The floodgate broke open, and all of a sudden, this girl who couldn't get one radio ad had 3 and 4 songs on Top 40 radio at the same time. And she's perseverant and brilliant, and you just can tell from all of her work, whether it's Tony Bennett or Star is Born or whatever it is, how much joy she personally derives from doing it, and how great she is. So one day I got a call. I was in Interscope working with Jimmy, and it was like I was at a record plant where I was parked for 5 years, and it was like Lady Gaga on line 2. I think, yeah, sure, probably Danny Strick pranking me. He used to do that. So I pick up the phone, and it's her. It's like, hi, is this Ron Fair? Yeah. Hi, it's Lady Gaga. Hi. Like, really? She was in Singapore. She said, I want to make a song with you. And I said, really? Well, I'd be thrilled. But thank you for the faith. And she said, it's not really ready yet. All I have is a work tape, but I have this week set aside, and I'm going to come to LA, and I want you to organize it for me and produce the song. I said, well, I would love to do that. And she sent me the work tape of the song Speechless, which was a half-an-hour jam out on Speechless. I can't believe what you said. She was jamming out for half an hour on Speechless. So I kind of had to figure out, I have limited time with her, so I had to see the world through her eyes and figure out how to format the song. And we cut that record. It's one of her big songs. It was unfortunately not a single because they chose another one, and she wanted to sort of want tip her hat to the Carpenters and David Bowie and T-Rex and all of the 70s stuff. That was a blast. And so I hired Abraham Laboriel Jr. to drum on it. He's the guy who plays with Paul McCartney. And so the record was recorded with, she was playing the piano in the control room and singing a guide vocal on an SM7. And Abraham was in the drum booth. And we did it, okay, let's just do the first verse. And then do the drum fill, boom, and stop on the first chorus because we don't know what we're going to get to yet. And so we cut the song in sections, and then I edited it all together overnight, and she came in and sang it, and then we put a bunch of beautiful guitars on it, and Jack Joseph mixed it, and it was on an album called The Fame Monster, which sold 10 million copies. In those days, we had those kind of numbers. And that was my, I can tell you this. She's a disciplined muso, hardcore recording animal in there, playing the changes, playing the piano, singing the background parts, stacking the vocals, working the 12, 14 hours a day like the rest of us. And it was a beautiful, lucky experience, and I'm proud to have a small role in her story.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that because because you know, my experience working with artists is sometimes they walk in the room and they're like, okay, Justin, what do we do? But then there's artists that come in the room and they have and your job is to just support their vision and make their vision better. And that's what it sounds like she is. You know, obviously I know friends that have worked with her over the years, and they say the same thing. I mean, your job is to just sort of get out of the way and support her in the same way that Quincy Jones supported Michael Jackson, for that matter. You know, like,
Well, this is why there's no core syllabus for record producing. This is why every single person who does it a different way. And it's also kind of a misnomer, because guys who make beats, make songs, write songs, make tracks, the word producer is so like mangled. What it really means is however the record comes into existence, whatever took place behind closed doors that nobody was there, although we do B-roll now and we show the process and we fake that. So where it gets nasty is when you say that my skill set elevates me above the guy who just knows how to use the laptop and is using computers to program drums. No, everyone is created equal. It's an even playing field, because the guy with the hit and the hot hand is the guy who matters at the moment, not the guy who can play Rachmaninoff with his left hand. That doesn't matter. We're in the record business. We want to do music, we can go to college, academia. That's not what we're doing. We want to make hit records and make stars.
it's funny. I mean, if I'm working on stuff that's particularly trappy, I'll have my 15-year-old daughter program the beat for me because she's much better at it than I am. You know, so I totally feel you. I wanted to just a real quick thing. If you guys have any questions, pop them into the chat. We have Zan standing by, and we're going to get into some Q&A in about 5 or 10 minutes. I wanted to ask you a question because, I mean, I could talk to you for 10 hours, but you talked about the sort of the evolution of a star, right? And you kind of touched on it a little bit with Gaga, but then also you did something that I think was exceptional. I mean, among the myriad of a million other things, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but you know, I think it was an absolute stroke of genius to connect Fergie into the Black Eyed Peas. And I know that you were responsible with that because she was part of Wild Orchid, which Stephanie Fair, your wife, was.
Let's get the story straight. Okay.
Okay.
Since
Well, that's right.
Let's get the story straight.
Okay.
Putting Fergie in the Black Eyed Peas was not my idea. It was Jimmy Iovine's idea. So you got to go back one step. When I was working for RCA and I had Wild Orchid, which is the group that Fergie came from, and the mother of my children, my beautiful best person on the planet, Stephanie, who was in that group. I was at RCA, and through a guy named Steve Rifkin, who had Loud Records, and Rich Isaacson, they had a soundtrack to the movie Hoodlum. Now, this is really super arcane stuff you can only get on webinars and books. So there was a singer named LV, who was the guy who sang Gangster's Paradise. And he had this ridiculously great voice. And the idea for the Hoodlum soundtrack was that we would take the contemporary urban figures and put them into Harlem in 1925. The movie was about Bumpy Johnson, the only African-American man to penetrate the mafia, played by Lawrence Fishburne. And that we would do it was sort of in the time of Brian Setzer. So we would do like the swing urban version of what Brian Setzer was doing with swing in pop. And we were doing the song Basin Street Blues with LV. So I recorded it with a big band, and it was a great, great record. And LV sounded amazing on it. And he was a kind of a fringe character around Wild Orchid at the time too. And I'd just come off this #1 record, Gangsta's Paradise, which if you listen to it, it's amazing. And so now I have this record, and I want to help market it, and I'm connected now. I'm feeling it. So I go as the representative of RCA, and I take a meeting because the soundtrack is on Interscope, not on RCA, but the singer was on RCA. So I go take a meeting with Jimmy Iovine. I meet him for the first time. And I say, I'm here, I'm Ron Fair, I'm an A&R guy, I'm working with Steve Rifkin, we have this song, Basin Street Blues, the Brian Setzer, you know, Harlem, this whole like kooky idea I have of trying to start a movement. And Jimmy says to me, you're that guy with that girl. I said, excuse me? He says, yeah, you got that girl, that blonde girl. She's in that group you have. What's her name? Stacey Ferguson. He goes, yeah, that girl. You have her. He goes, I'm interested in her. He said, well, I'm with RCA. They're signed to RCA. I'm here to talk about the Hoodlum Soundtrack. I want to get a video budget from you because Hype Williams wants to do the video for Basin Street Blues, and this is how we're going to say, no. I'm not going to do a video for that. But what about that girl? So it was one of these meetings where I kept saying apples, 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 and he kept saying penguins, penguins, penguins. And we were not communicating, but it was a good vibe. But that video for the Bumpy Johnson, Hoodlum, Lawrence Fishburne, and all that crap, like, check all that off the list. None of that ever happened. And time passed. So much time passed. I signed Christina, it blew up. God bless. And Jimmy Iovine came calling for me. And he said, I want you to be in my company. And that's another story I'll save for another time. Once I got to Interscope, I had a friendship with will.i.am because I played vibraphone on a Black Eyed Peas record before I met will.i.am through Dave Pensado. And we liked each other, and we had a commonality, and they were on the label and they're kind of kicking around, and they had a couple of albums out that weren't, they were declining. And then Jimmy was the one who said, what about that girl? What about that girl that you had? What's happening with her? And he said, go get that girl and put her in the Black Eyed Peas. And it was his idea. But the beauty of my time with Jimmy was he was the pitcher and I was the catcher. You need both guys to have the winning baseball team. So many of the things we did, he would say, how about this? And then of course I would have my own take on it. And then I would go make it happen. And I had his wind beneath my wings. This is very important for young record executives. None of us are in a vacuum. You've got to have an angel, a mentor, a high roller, a force of nature behind you. And I had Jimmy Iovine for 10 years.
Now, and I just want to talk about it briefly because you only glossed over Christina Aguilera. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of her, but she did pretty well. When you were sitting in the room and listening,
well, no, because you asked me about Fergie.
No, I know.
Of course, I was friends with Fergie. I was friends with her. She knew Will. We talked about it. She had opportunities at the time, and we were able, because of my relationship with her, to illustrate how joining the Black Eyed Peas might be the piece of her life that would bring her the stardom that she deserved.
And when you were working on Where's the Love, that first kind of real breakout moment for that era of Black Eyed Peas, were you just in the studio going, holy shit, like we have something
No, that's got a story to it too. So as the relationship matured, Will went to Jimmy and said, we want to be with Ron. I was the president of A&M. They were on Interscope. A&M was a division of Interscope, but it was its own little like niche. I had a couple of people with me, and we had our own little silo. So Jimmy said, hey, how about the Black Eyed Peas? You want to work with them? I said, yeah. I love them. I love Will. I love Fergie. Like, let's go. We came into my office. I actually didn't really ever have an office at Interscope when I was there 10 years. It was like one of the makeshift moments I had when I had a card table and folding chairs. And I had a meeting with Will, and Taboo, and Apple. And I said, guys, you're at the crossroads. You're not like Nas or the Last Poets or Public Enemy. You're entertainers. You guys are entertainers. You're television stars. Well, we need a song that really explains that proposition. And it'll work like a house on fire. I don't think we have it yet. And it was like, okay, everybody's listening. Now that can go two ways when you're in my job, the A&R guy. It can either be, you're the record company fascist pig, stop telling us what to do. It's our music, it's our life, don't intrude. Or if you, like me, because I played vibraphone on a Black Eyed Peas record, Will already knew this guy's kindred spirit. So I then vamped one further, and I said, tell you what, guys, why don't you take a guy like, and I'm thinking, searching all files, matching file found, Justin Timberlake, and write a song with a guy like that, an entertaining song. That could have gone two ways. It could have been like, you know, who the hell are you to tell us who to write songs with? You're just a fascist record company pig trying to control our life. A lot of artists like that. But in this case, Taboo said, Justin Timberlake's my man. Every time he comes to town, we go out, we hang out, we go dancing, we have a blast, we make beats. This is my friend. What are you talking about, man? Justin Timberlake, that's a done deal. I said, good. You guys call Justin Timberlake. You leave me out of it. You leave your manager out of it. You leave his manager out of it. You leave everybody out of it, and artist to artist, see what happens. Don't call me if nothing happens. It's cool. Just artist to artist. Just see what happens. Justin Timberlake wrote Where's the Love with the Black Eyed Peas in 15 minutes and sang it down a voicemail on the phone. People killing, people dying, children hurt when you hear them crying. It was that kind of a thing. And then they made the record, and then I asked Will, hey, could you mind if I put big Beethoven strings on the bass line? Ba, 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 and boom. Then Jimmy came in and he said, have Apple redo his last verse. It's not strong enough. So I said, hey, Apple, why don't we try? So we tried that. Then everything on Where Is the Love was all about counter-intuition, all about what shouldn't I do as opposed to what should I do? Because what shouldn't I do revealed the whole thing and opened it up. They went on to open, it's another story I can keep going for an hour just on this, about how the Black Eyed Peas opened for Christina Aguilera and Justin Timberlake on that tour, and how we used those relationships to by the end of that tour and that summer, and the friendship that was forged with Justin Timberlake and the Black Eyed Peas, how it broke the group. It was a worldwide #1. The album sold 17 million copies. In those days, we had those numbers. And, you know, that was coming off of 300,000 on the first album, 100,000 on the second album, 17 million on the third one.
Well, it's funny. Our paths sort of in a way crossed even before we met. My wife, Daphne, was a publicist at Universal. In fact, she worked with Jeremy, and she worked with Black Eyed Peas. They were all in my 1998 Jeep Cherokee together before they could afford car services. And I remember they did a show, I want to say opening for Destiny's Child in Toronto. And then after that, right when that song was blowing up, there was a club in Toronto called Revival, and they all went and performed at like midnight, from midnight to 3 a.m. They just went and just did this massive performance at Revival, and it was just incredible, just understanding and watching that passion. I agree with you. We could be talking.
The thing about so Will.i.am, he was, and always he is, and Jimmy had all these guys around. He had Timbaland, he had Pharrell, he had Robin Thicke, he had Will.i.am, he had Ron Fair, he had all these guys around him. Jimmy is really a part of all this success so much. But Will predicted the short form, which became TikTok, 15 years ago. He predicted things like Apple Pay. Will.i.am is a futurist, true futurist.
Totally agree. We had some incredible discussions about how he wanted to. I mean, this is at the time. When was Elephant? It's like 15 years ago at least. And I remember him saying, our next record, we're not even going to have CDs. We're like, what are you talking about? And he was right. You know, I want to keep going through this, but I think it would be a disservice to not allow the people that have logged in to ask questions. Is it okay if we just go to some Q&A, Ron?
Whatever you want.
Guys,
my wife says you guys write a book. I'm not planning on writing a book, so it's only these sort of the tribe meets and the village elders pass the wisdom of the buffalo hunter to the young braves. That's what we're doing today.
I love it. And you know, one of the things, and just a quick side note, you don't have to expand on this, but I remember when Ron and I were working on a project that unfortunately never came out. He said something to me that was just so powerful, and I use it to this day in every single production that I work on, which is as a producer, you have the task. You have you can put it in a much better way. But talking about the diabolical task of deciding what people listen to and how they listen to music, and I use that a lot in simplifying and paring down the way that I approach it. And you know, again, just to compliment you, Ron, when you listen to music now, especially things like Billie Eilish, some of the records that you referenced, even Halsey, there's such a minimalist attitude in the way that records are put together. And I really do think that your perception has sort of permeated into modern pop culture in that way, music-wise, which is less is more, and really being diabolical in what the listener gets to listen to. She felt like you wanted to talk about that a bit, and then we're going to get to questions. Zan's going to start asking some questions.
Okay. I mean, I think that the people who are entering the record industry or starting out or in it now, practitioners. I'm just starting Act 3. So, but the people who are in Act 1 are have entered in the most magnificent time of them all, which is the egalitarian entry point of the internet, when everyone can put their music out equally, and the public can raise their hand and say Lil Nas X or not, or Post Malone or not. And there doesn't have to be 27 layers of college-educated, posh executives deciding whether that music gets to be heard. So it reminds me of the scene in, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, Apocalypto, when they have to run the guys at it's in the ancient times of the Incas and the Mayans, and they're running across this field, and if they can get across this field, then they get to survive. And every kind of arrow and poison and thing is being thrown at them while they got to run across this field. That's the entry point on the internet. You can get in, but the first 500 yards is quicksand. You got to get through that. So that's why you need publicity. That's why you need DSP marketing. That's why you need cleverness. That's why you need a plutonium smash. Like, you can get in. You used to not be able to get in, but the first 500 yards are quicksand, and you sink fast, and then you can try again. So to answer your question about, or your statement about, like, we get to control what's people hear, well, that could be the songwriter controlling it. It could be the artist controlling it. It could be the guy making the beat that controls it. It could be the randomness of the engineer at 5 a.m. who controls it. Like, I don't know who controls it, but I will tell you this. And it was told to me, and I didn't know what it meant. And then when I figured out what it meant, I made a lot of money off it. They only hear what's in their ear. What does that mean? That means that if you put a friggin' loud snare drum with tons of reverb on top of the vocal, what do you think they're going to hear? You control that. They only hear what's in their ears. So whatever it is you want to be heard, is it the words? Is it the beat? Is it the idea? Is it the attitude? Is it the fun? Is it a cocktail of all of that? It's up to you as the creator of the record, whether it's the producer, the artist, or the hairdresser, it doesn't matter. They only hear what's in their ear. And if there's too much shit in there, they can't hear it. They can't know, the audience can't pick apart. Like, oh, if only the bass line wasn't stepping on top of the transition to the second verse, this would resonate in my heart. They don't know that. People don't walk into buildings and talk about the architecture underneath the building. They walk in the building. So they only hear what's in their ear. It's up to us as music creators to decide what do you want heard. It's really that simple. That's why something like Lil Nas X in its simplicity is so genius. Because if you might say, oh, it's a dumb record, nothing like, but guess what? They just put that perfect cocktail of stuff in your ear. The combination of the sing-songiness and the topic and the trappy beat and the openness of it, and boom, the ingredients of a hit.
Love it. I mean, it goes back to wrap around. Dun dun da da dun da da dun da da dun 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 da. It just comes back to that.
Well, I'll tell you another one. Where the drum beat atonally is such a smash that it would be a smash. Da 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 da. I mean, I can't do a worse version of My Sharona than that. It was atonal and heinous. But guess what? Da 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 da. That is a friggin' smash.
Yeah, totally. Let's get to some questions. Zan is on standby. We have a bunch of questions that have come in. We're going to do our best to try and steal as much of Ron's time as possible.
We talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about Billie Eilish, My Sharona, and Ahmed Jamal in the same conversation. It's pretty good.
As you can see, I wish we had. Hey, I'd love to steal you as long as we can. I mean, every time I talk to him, I feel like so inspired. Zan, do you want to hit us with some questions?
Yep. So this one's from Gabrielle. If an artist has a song that's performing well, meaning streaming numbers and has legs, how long do you ride that before dropping more material? Is there an art to writing a release and pushing it versus releasing content in an already congested space?
Wow. Well, so I'm not positive that I would give the right answer to that question, and my insight would be valuable to the questioner because it's so subjective, and I'm in that position right now. I have a streaming record in the country genre that's really, 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 really doing well. But I think it has to do with, are you looking at I look at the metrics I would look at is the posture of the artist, the stature of the artist, because somebody like J. Cole or Drake, they're putting out 15 records at the same time. And like 10 records will swoop into the chart and be 1 through 10 because the artist has so much power. So depending upon the stature of the artist, the marketplace, I think that's a case by case call, but my gut would be we live in a more is more world. And that if there are fans of a song and you give them more songs, and this is pre-radio promotion, this is in playlist land, that will probably be a good thing because it falls under content and it builds your relationship with your fan more. There's more, gives it more dimension. Now, then of course with that comes, I like this song, I don't like that song, and then you get that 50-50 thumb up, thumb down. Some people hate it, some people love it, but I think. If you're building an artist's career using the internet in phase one, timed properly, like call an audible when you feel like, okay, this is peaking out, let's put something else out. Put the acoustic version out, put the remix out, put the making of out, put the interview out, support it.
I think that's excellent advice, and you're right. I mean, so many people are putting on multiple songs at the same time, and I think what's interesting too is that when you look at artists like Lizzo, we're talking to Larry Wade next week, who is very instrumental in Lizzo's career. Truth Hurts was a record that came out in 2016, written in 2015, that connected to a Netflix show that just was the right placement at the right time. And 3 years later, it was a #1 record on Billboard. So, I think that strange things can happen when songs are put in the right place.
But if you also part of that story is to stay nimble.
Yes.
And to be able to respond quickly to the scene changes.
Exactly.
That's really an important part of it.
Agreed. Zan, next question.
Great. This one's from Rachel. What's your opinion about ageism in the music industry? In today's music climate, would you ever sign an artist over the age of 30? What about 40?
You're asking the wrong guy because don't ask me how old I am. All I can say is, my own opinion, it's a sensitive topic for me that I deal with all the time because it's a cruel joke how old I got. If I start telling you what year I started recording, the first medium I started recording on was mono 1/4 inch, let alone, unlimited tracks on Pro Tools. But if a record label hears a smash and the artist turns out to be a female who's 42 years old, and they say that's not for us, it's because of the prevailing conditions in the marketplace, and it's not something to be taken personally. Is it unjust on some levels? I think so. But we live in a youth-fast culture, youth-based fast culture. And so, as painful as it is a consideration.
I was going to say,
Billie Eilish is the biggest artist in the world right now. She's magnificently talented. She's 17, 18 years old. That sets the playing field at a certain level. And what drives the big streaming numbers, whatever, it's kids. So you can call it ageism and put a brutal tag on it, but doesn't mean you can't find a robust and fluid spot in the record industry ecosystem at any age. If you're 85 years old and you walk in with Billie Eilish, they're talking. That's what I'm counting on, because I'm 82.
You're not 82. You look amazing for 82. Look, I was going to say, just for my own little sort of experience, one of the most relieving moments of my career professionally was when I realized I didn't need to be an artist, and I could be in the studio making and producing records and writing for artists, and really helping a support system for other artists that were much better than I was and believed in them. So I think that if you go, people are really responding to the songs I'm writing, but maybe it's me, and if you can have that conversation, you can have a tremendous career, incredible career. And one of the things I always say, if you're a songwriter and you have a great voice, and you can actually vocalize the songs you're writing and make them believable and feel like an artist, it makes Ron's job or any other A&R person's job easier when they hear a great song.
There's always examples. There's always examples. Like, I'll point to Idina Menzel. She's an absolute unicorn. I made her Christmas album last year, and it was the climax of which is we performed it live at Carnegie Hall. I conducted the orchestra, and my 90-year-old mother got to come and see me conduct at Carnegie Hall. Okay, but Idina Menzel, look at her. She's defied gravity. She had a hit in 3 decades. First it was Rent, then it was Wicked, then it was Frozen. 20s, 30s, 40s. In between, there was very, very spare times for Idina Menzel, but she's an amazing singer and with something really to contribute. And so smart people around her, teams, herself, perseverance, Rent, Wicked, Frozen in 3 different decades. Amazing. There's no age discrimination for her. It's a sliding scale, and the world is not the universe is not a fair, just, nice teddy bear kind of place. So, we got to survive. Yeah. You got to use your wits, and you got to have luck.
And perseverance. I love it. He also mentioned teams. I think you have to have a really good team, a core group of opinions around you that you can trust, that aren't always telling you how great you are or how shit you are. That can actually give you real advice and feedback. Zan, you got a couple more questions?
Yeah, this one's from Devin. What experiences outside of music helped to develop your craft?
I don't know. I'm not often stumped with Q&A, and I don't know that any experiences outside of music helped me develop my craft other than surviving in Hollywood and, being able to sustain myself and face the trials and tribulations that came with that, with the years of unemployment and being broke and, starter marriage and all the rest of the stuff. But, as a guy who's now father to 4 people, so much of your perception and your ability to navigate the world comes from parenting, that I can only hope to enrich my 4 kids, if they'll listen to me, with the kind of advice that they can draw from when they need it.
It's funny, as a parent, I just hope my kids think I'm cool. I'm with you. Great. That's a great answer. It's a great answer. Zan, a couple more?
Yeah, we have a couple questions about placing songs in TV film. This one's from Jake. I'm currently writing and producing with a new artist who we're looking to break through songs in TV film placements. Do you have any advice?
There are some open access music supervisors who have, perches on the internet that will listen to new stuff. It's not so much advice as it is as I agree with that strategy a lot. There's a lot of songwriters, especially down here in Nashville, people who had maybe a few country hits or a swing at the bat as an artist, who end up making a decent living, a good living, making songs for sync. And there's so many shows now with Netflix and HBO Max and Disney Plus, and there's so much need for music. And a lot of the music supervisors are now open to it doesn't have to be Sting who sings the song. So I think it's a great strategy as far as like, who might you go to at the beginning with your first batch of songs? Justin, you probably know that better. But there are lots of music supervisors who will listen to unsolicited stuff.
Yeah, we're working on some pretty exciting things that we're going to get ready to start announcing, hopefully in the next month or so, that I think could probably even furthermore answer that question. But yeah, and I've done a lot of film and TV, continue to do so, and we're always helping you guys through MDIIO.com to try and find opportunities and to try and create those opportunities for you. So obviously, set up your profile. It's free, and start jumping in. We have some webinars actually that we've done that are just kind of like MDIIO A to Z, where we just kind of go through the platform. Anyway, hey, Zen, more questions?
Yeah, this one's from Daniel. In a time where almost every upcoming artist produces their own records independently, what would be your advice on where or who to take the final? Sorry, guys. On where or who to take the finalized product to?
Okay, well, my answer to that is, we used to get a lot of questions like that at music conventions that I used to moderate a lot of for many, many years, the A&R panels and things. I think if you're a new act, and the first thing a record company, other than like the exceptional stories, but the first thing a young A&R person is going to want to see is like, well, what's a social footprint? What do they got going? It's a part of the menu now. Yes, you can be the most amazing unsung hero, Bob Dylan, living above Kentucky Fried Chicken in Camden and discovered, and a high-powered manager massages you into a situation and then you become a star. I don't think that's terribly realistic, but putting your music on the internet, having, catching lightning in a bottle, working the socials, working the DSPs, coming with content, building your social profile, turning that into a local gig in your town, getting a line around the block. I mean, all the rock bands coming up do this, all of them. And the first thing that the record company or the third party is going to want to see is like, what are the socials? And it can work for you or against you, because some artists have enormous socials and they're not getting anywhere, and others have no socials and they're not getting anywhere either. But where to take your music, like I said before, other than the 500 yards of quicksand? The internet. TuneCore, like do a distribution deal, like Cobalt. There's so many of them. You can literally upload your music. Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. You have free advertising all around you that we never had when I was a kid. And then you got to pound it and you got to get lucky, because there's a million other people trying to do it. The other thing is that line around the block. That's not a pipe dream. That's a really important thing. 30 people who turn into 60 people, who turn into 100 people, who turn into 500 people. That's the Dave Matthews Band. And ultimately 50,000 people and 100,000 people.
Yeah. Well, we can keep going on. We're going to do one more question. Yeah, I mean, I want to be selfish and just talk all day, but I know that we can't. We all have lives to get back to, sort of. Zane, you got one more question for us?
Yeah, this one's from Brandon. I'm a songwriter, lyricist, arranger, producer, and engineer of the music my group produces. I've chosen to do all of these steps myself simply because it's easier to rely on myself than others, and it gives me full creative control over the final product. In general, do you have any advice in taking on all these steps myself, or at what point, if any, would it be a good idea to pass something on to another professional?
Well, this is going to go right back to the beginning when I told you about Bill Conti. So, I mean, I'm the same. I could literally, like an engineer, I could produce, I could mix, I could play the piano. Like, guess what? I'm not your personal evolution inside the ingredients of a record. It's not all equal, unless you're Stevie Wonder. Okay, but Stevie Wonder couldn't set up the microphone, so he needed help too, and he had it. If you're Stevie Wonder, all bets are off. But typically, you might be a better songwriter than you are a drummer. You might be a better background vocal arranger than you are lead singer. So if the end result is to have the best possible outcome of your song, of your recording, bring in the cavalry, man. Bring in the cavalry. Get the guy who works at Chick-fil-A who sounds like Eric Clapton to play the guitar. You don't have to do that to prove anything. You need the record to do the talk. So the real raconteurs of it, it's like Quincy Jones's name came up. Surrounded, he's the most brilliant musician of them all. What did he have around him? The best drummer, the best bass player, the best guitar player, the best piano player, the best singer, the best of everything. And then he get painted with the strongest pigments.
Yeah,
so
great advice.
Move forward. Be
Great
honest
advice.
with yourself about the music you're making.
Fantastic. I just want to be selfish and do one more. Could we take one more question, Ron? Do we have time with you?
I'm good. I'm good. I have a few more minutes, and thank you for letting me rant. This is very therapeutic for me. I like to talk about this stuff because I'm going to die and it's going to go away with me.
Are you insane? What are you talking about? We're like sitting here like sponges, taking up every single point on every word. And by the way, even after you die, it'll be available on our YouTube page, so it'll be fine. Don't worry about that. We got you, buddy.
Hopefully, I got shadow on the brick backdrop. Perfect.
I think we got a couple questions coming in. Let's do a couple more, and let's keep going. Why not, Zan?
This is from Danielle. As an artist, I'm focusing on the longevity of my career rather than being an overnight success. What do you think makes a great artist, and what quality do you think artists like Adele, Sam Smith, and others have in common?
I have my personal philosophy. So that the fact that there's an artist that has a 30-year career, I think that's a wonderful thing. And by the way, today I'm re-signing and reuniting with Keisha Cole, who I had 6 number ones with. She's going to end up with a 30-year career. And we're very excited about that, and the announcement will come out soon. The longevity piece is something that used to be a paradigm in the A&R process. You couldn't sign anything that wasn't going to have a long career because there was so much money and so difficult to break an act that you wanted somebody who was going to last. Guess what? I'm not sure. I don't want to mention any names because it'll be insulting, but a lot of the pop records that we're feeling today that are coming up and going, I'm not sure those acts are going to last. I'm not sure they would know what to do on a stage as small as the Troubadour in Los Angeles. There's just all lanes are open. There's the flash in the pan, one song, and adios. There's the next Adele. But it's the universe who gives you that. You don't call it. There's only so many Bill Withers, If you're Bill Withers, we're going to find out. Other than that, if you happen to be an artist who has a hot streak and you have a run of success, it's not a guaranteed forever thing, and it's a mental health thing. So you have to be mature and smart. Save your money, enjoy it while you have it, plan for the future. It's not a forever thing. But the longevity, right now, if you ask me, if you're an A&R guy at a label, one of the hot new guys we have in the business, and they're deciding like, well, I wouldn't sign that because there's no longevity, I don't think that comes into the conversation. Nobody knows what longevity even means. We could all die from the next plague. So I don't think longevity is a paradigm anymore in the equation.
I think one time you told me if you were a rock with a large social media following, there's an A&R person out there who will sign you. I think that was paraphrasing something that you said to me once, Ron.
I think that we may have transcended that moment now.
Oh, good.
I think that the first iteration of the internet was that everything that had crazy numbers was so confusing. But the A&R people are savvy now, and they know about click-throughs, and they know about how many people stay on, and the consumption patterns, and they're data crunchers. They can look and see like what does this click mean versus what does that click mean. Now at the end of the day, you still need to discover policy. You got to do that. But there's all this methodology around that can be used for you or against you.
Appreciate that. We'll try and get to a few more questions, and we'll try and keep them brief so that we can get to kind of answer all of them. Next question.
Great. Hi, my name is Paige Penny. I'm from Newfoundland, Canada. I'm interested in getting connected with songwriting networks and songwriters in LA. Do you know of any publishing companies or mentors that are interested in artist development? Any suggestions? Thanks.
Again, I've had questions like this throughout my whole career. I think things like some of the performance rights organizations, ASCAP and BMI, they have workshops. I don't know that it's realistic to think that you're going to have like a whole writing diary created before you get there. I think get in your car, pack your dog and your little valise, and come to LA and work at Starbucks and start networking. And that's what's going to, and then there's things like ASCAP and BMI and different songwriter organizations that have 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week, and then you start to meet people, and then you're in somebody's house and you sing a hook and somebody hears it and they have a friend and the hairdresser knows the mom and the mom has a kid, and like then stuff happens. But you're not going to be able to do it unless you get to the battlefield. Yeah.
If you want to be in the potato business, move to Idaho. What's next? Give us a couple more.
All right. This one's from Sheldon. Imagine you're an independent artist right now approaching an A&R. What would you do to further your career? What kind of help would you be asking for?
Well, that's pull and push again. So if you're pushing, come in armed. Here's my smash. By the way, how does that smash play out in the room? The first chorus. The first half of the first chorus better be a friggin' smash, and it's subjective. Because if you have to listen through the end of the second chorus and halfway through the bridge to decide whether this has some interest to you, it's too late. You got to have it in the grooves. Go in, if you get that meeting, go in armed with your record, your photo, your best look, your attitude, humble but strong, willing to listen, some good socials. Doesn't have to be 10 million, but like last week we had 13,000. This week we have 84,000. And you are the CEO of you.
Ooh, put that on a coffee mug. I love it. I love that. That's just too good to keep going on that answer. Zan.
This one's from Lisa. If you want to pitch a song to a well-known artist, what's the avenue to get the song seen by them?
Deceit, infiltration, bold luck, knocking on the door, stalking the publisher, the agent, the manager, the business manager, the hairdresser, the mom, the dog groomer. Any way you get the song to the artist, if they cut the song and it's a hit, you win.
Brilliant.
But from coming from a cold start, there's no fairy godmother that's going to go, oh my God, this is a hit. I got this from, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and now I'm going to utilize my relationship to give the song to HER. Like, that's not realistic. What's realistic is that if you get in the battlefield, like that's how I did it. I used to, when I first broke in, I knew everybody in Hollywood, all the producers and engineers would go to this Italian restaurant called Martoni's. I knew they were there. They would all go there at 7 o'clock. Everybody was just, so guess what? I showed up at the bar, just hung out and tried to pretend like I was part of it. And I knew who was who. And enough martinis went by that it was like, who are you, kid? Oh yeah, you want to come to my studio tomorrow night? Before I knew it, I was hanging out on Brothers Johnson sessions and Carpenter sessions, and I was 17, 18 years old. You don't get an invitation in the mail. You are cordially invited to a career. This is like infiltration.
That's amazing.
But you have the internet. We didn't have that.
You are cordially invited to a career. That's brilliant. It's just so good. I'm so grateful that you're talking to us today. Well, I think we got one more coming, right, Zan?
Right.
Yeah, this one's from Craig. I'm an okay singer, but a great marketer, selling my marketing company for enough money to retire, but I won't. Should I market myself as an artist or find better singers and market them?
Both. That's a very good person. Amen. Good last question. You don't know which horse is going to be the winner. If it's you, be careful what you wish for. But it may not be you. And if you're making the money from the marketing company and you've got those chops, it's like, run every play, every lane on the freeway. If you're Bruce Springsteen, do it. But if the guy next door who's the crappy, rapper with a stupid song and that raises its hand, have that too. You don't have to have rigid boundaries. We all love all kinds of music.
I mean, at the peak of Prince's career, he wrote "Nothing Compares to You" that Sinead O'Connor sang, right?
Yeah, it's just like, but the question is, should I be the star or should I get a star? I would say all the above. Get two stars. You get one, get two.
What was that? What was it in contract? If why build one? Why build one for the price of one when you can have two for the price of two? I love that. Look, we can continue going all day. I don't want to monopolize the time here. And I know that there may be some questions that we missed, and I apologize for that. We'll try and get them back to you privately, if that's okay. I mean, as you guys can see, we kind of always do this. We mean for it to go to an hour, and then it's just so much good information that we just, it's just hard to stop. I want to thank Zan for taking your questions. I want to thank my partner Curtis Cerna in MDIIO.com, MDIIO.com, and like I said, join it for free. We got some amazing stuff that's coming up, and if you're not a member, you should be. I want to thank them all, but most importantly, Ron, I cannot express my deepest enough gratitude to the absolute mind-blowing insights that you've shared with us today. I can only speak for myself to say that I just am so inspired by your story and by your words and by your advice. And every time we get a chance to talk, just friend to friend, even though last time we saw each other in person, he fed me a piece of key lime pie for my birthday, which was amazing because we were at your house for your event, and somehow you made it about my birthday, which was kind of amazing. I really always appreciated that, despite not really loving key lime pie. It was really appreciated as a gesture from friend to friend. But thank you so much. And I don't know, could you impart any last little bits of wisdom for us, Ron?
I've always felt this, and more so now. Like the record industry, it's like a weird cult. It's a tiny little thing compared to the transportation industry, the packaging industry, But it's there for those who love it and want it. And if you really have the commitment to find a way in, and there's so many ways now, and it's not going to be easy, but it's there for the taking, Justin. It's there for those who really love it and take it.
That's so perfect to leave us. Thank you so much. Please find us on social media. We are MDIIO, MDIIO. That's our Instagram and all of our socials. Ron, what's your Instagram? If you can just share with us real quick. Did we just lose him? Well, find us on MDIIO.com and you can jump onto his Instagram. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you are spending your Fridays with us. And hit me up. My email is jgray@MDIIO.com, jgray@MDIIO.com. Hit me anytime. I will do my best to respond. And thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Have a great Friday. Words to live by that we took out of this: lessons learned. You never know when the opportunity is going to present itself to you. And Ron Fair took an internship at a crappy studio in order to meet Bill Conti, in order to turn into what became his career, not least of which is the fact that he played, what did he say, an instrument that he played on, not xylophone, but something like that, on a Black Eyed Peas record that literally turned his career into one of the most extremely successful executives. So you never know when playing a xylophone on somebody's record could turn into the thing that jumps your career off. Who knows? Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and let's see you next week, hopefully. All right, bye, guys. Take care.